What's up, guys? It's Caliber back with a retro deck profile. I got top 8 at one of the Chicago monthlies. Not really the biggest achievement, especially considering this is one of the smaller ones. 32 players, or 33, because there was a Retro Reborn tournament happening same day in San Jose, Texas, I believe. But regardless, I know that this isn't really like one of the um, bigger monthlies that people are going to be looking forward to. So the validity of how real this top is, honestly, I'm not going to act like this was like a monumental like achievement for me. But it has been a while since I've topped a monthly, and it has also just been a while since I've played Edison format. The last time I played in a tournament in person was back in April of this year, where I unfortunately lost pretty early on, which was kind of the thing that kept happening for probably about a year straight. I really couldn't make it past round 3 for the life of me, for whatever reason. Ever since I stopped playing Dragon Turbo and tried to focus more on engaging with the game rather than just comboing through, I have definitely enjoyed it more. Unfortunately, I also see the degree of luck, as well as, just being able to make good reads and have consistent mental throughout a lot of these higher round count tournaments. Unfortunately, whether I am the common denominator, so I can't say that every single time I showed up that I was unlucky. I'm sure there are many moments that I am just not seeing that I could hold myself accountable to and learn from my mistakes. But I don't really have people that play this format with me. I really wish I did. Unfortunately, that's just not the case. So I don't have that iron sharpens iron ability to get better. But that being said, I try to get in practice where I can. I'm always looking at the deck profiles and the new techs from whenever people top their maybe their own monthlies or their bigger in-person tournaments, the online, the RBETs, and the Retro Reborns. There's always some really cool stuff coming out. So talking about new stuff, I was playing Twilight for a little bit there, and unfortunately, I came to the conclusion that you kind of need to have a good day. And if I can just be so real, I'm not having a good day. I'm not doing good right now. I didn't feel like Twilight was a good pick for me. I went back to the tried and true Vayu, similar to the Eric 41, the Sack Face 41 or whatever. I changed one card. We'll talk about that later. But I just went with this because, while I had been trying Nitro because I wanted the speed, and I do believe that choosing the speed would have been correct, I did not have nearly as many reps as I did with this deck. So with this deck, this was a comfort pick. I just said we'll sleeve up our cards, which I ended up needing to re-sleeve. So shout out to Pristine Protection. And then I just said, all right, I'm just going to play my best. I need an excuse to get out the house today. And I didn't think ended up doing well, but I did, and I'm very grateful. I got to hang out with a lot of cool guys and slam some cardboard. So definitely a good turnout. We'll get into the main deck. It's 41. Like I said, one card difference from Sizzle 41. So I do want to talk about why I think you're going to start seeing so many more lists moving away from the hamsters and Raikos. But just to start off, of course, you've got your 3 Vayu, your 3 Sirocco, and then your 1 Gale. Oddly enough, Gale was pretty mid. There were moments that I could have pressured by summoning like a Vayu Synchro or just normaling a Sirocco and then specialing Gale. But every time I felt that I had an extension piece in hand, it would be like I'm overextending, and I didn't just want to walk into torrentials and mirror forces when it wasn't necessary. So, weirdly enough, Gale was mid today. I ended up banishing it a few times off of Allure, but honestly, it's a really weird time to be playing Vayu, because there's just a great argument to be moving on to the night package instead. The 2 and the 2. Now, I had been looking at lists that have been playing 3 Greffer. Some have been putting it in the side. They said for speed against combo, and others have been main decking it. And I talked to one of the players today who had done this, and I didn't really resonate with his reasoning at first. We were talking right before top 8, and then immediately in top 8, the problem that you would use the 3 greffers to solve happened to me. I drew all 3 Vayus, and unfortunately, I really couldn't find a good way to convert them. Whereas if you're always seeing a knight, you have good conversion. The Armonite can send a plaguing, making a very aggressive Brio, and the Brio can bounce all your weenies in hand. Otherwise, the Greffer's always making your worst cards your best cards. So I do agree that going forward, I think I would play a 3rd copy of this, probably in the main, cutting the Hamster, because while Hamster was great for me all day, the reason I play the Hamster Ryko Caius package is because it's Hamster Ryko Caius. Unfortunately, it did really badly into the Deck Devastation Virus package, which I didn't really expect, but it still happened, and it happened when it mattered most. So, while I did think the DDV decks and the DDV tech was on the downtick, it still comes up, and I think it hurts Vayu more than I initially anticipated. So a lot of people are on that new Nitro or Wu Wing style deck, and it is a Chicago brew, so I wouldn't hate having to play it. And the thing is, I wanted to switch to Nitro because of the speed, and I think I made the wrong call today because I think the speed was very important. Now, I don't want to undersell how well the Hamster and Ryko package was. I didn't really end up converting a lot into Caius's, and that I'll talk a little bit more when we get into that package, but keep in mind the key theme today is speed. You kind of need to play the game. So the 2 cents, and something to note, other than the Vayus, these are really the only cards I want in mill. Which, if you think about it, that's 5 cards. I don't want to justify entire engines dedicated to milling cards when I'm just milling bombs. My luck has not been that great today with the mills. And if you only have 5 cards, I think that's an even bigger argument for targeted sending rather than random. So you can get rid of the element of chaos, and you can start trying to play for targeted and speedy maneuvers. So to Caius, it was all right. But the moments it was great was when I was already winning. And I really didn't like seeing this card when I was all bricked on normal summons. I understand that's why some people cut it down to 1, but then you want to see it. I think this is a good bomb to set up for if you can, kind of like a Burial or a Dad or something, but you never want to see multiples. And maybe the frequency or the slowness of having a very normal summon heavy deck shows its weaknesses when the decks are only getting faster. Then more Dark Boss monsters. We've got the Gores, Chaos Sork, shout out to Tyler for this really beautiful printing of it, and then Dark Arm Dragon, of course. I did not see Dark Arm Dragon that much live. Unfortunately, I have a problem where I seem to overmill, unfortunately. Then on to a pain point, which is the Ryko package. Now, the reason I settled on this instead of the 3rd Greffer is just because of the safety. This is a tried and true deck list, just because there is theory that is pointing out huge developments in the meta does not mean that this stuff is completely outdated. However, I do believe that this package is emblematic of a slightly outdated version of Edison format, which is when people were playing decks that had meshed engines, but they didn't flow or quickly turbo through as fast. And what I mean is, people play the HRC packages because they want to see some combination of Hamster and Caius, or Ryko and Caius. In a perfect world, you would catch somebody off guard with a Hamster, get a free Ryko, pop something, and then get a big boss monster to convert off of one of those bodies. What happens when you see the pieces kind of at different points so they don't mesh well, or when your Ryko is milling really powerful cards, but it's not milling the pieces that you need because you really don't play that many, or when you're kind of caught in a conundrum of, what am I going to side out? Are they going to have the Noblemans for like Black Wings, or are these hamsters too slow? It's really frustrating, and I know people with more reps in the deck obviously have their answer to this problem, but this is... I definitely feel the slowness compared to like when Wu Wings or Nitro Vayu loads up on the ladder. And it's just like they see it, and they always see it. And it's because they do max out on their best starters. So that's where I'm at, where I'm like, this was cool. It was safe, and it got me top 8. But in the moments where I really needed to play, and I may have had a chance, I lacked the speed and conversion. And lastly, the last monster is Card Trooper. This would still be played regardless if this was more of a Nitro build or not. You do need outs to stuff like Consecrated. Onto the spells, it's the 7 as always. So Charge, Rhoda, Allure, Brain, and then Heavy, MST, and Burial. This is never changing. Of course, if I were to cut the Hamster Raikou Chaos package, you would probably see that charge in the side deck for Lilas. 10 traps in the deck, 2 Deep Prison, 2 Bottomless, Torrential, and Mirror Force. I know people are very iffy about the ratios on Bottomless, but again, I didn't even know I was going to play until late last night, technically early this morning. I didn't really have time to figure out all the tech options. I know there's been developments. I haven't been able to keep up completely. So I just kind of sleeved up what I knew was kind of tried and true, and I just tried to play the cards to the best of my abilities, and it worked. And then to round it off, the card that I am playing that is different from the Sizzle 41, it is not the Judgment or the second DDV, but it is the 7 Tools of the Bandit. And when I tell you this card was the nuts, it was the nuts. Of course, people have very difficult reads on your one-ofs or your little tech choices, and I'm not saying that this one card is so busted that it like got me there. It's just the reason I put it in is because I do agree that DDV is not in the greatest of stocks right now, and you do want to have an answer like a checkmate piece. But Judgment can be very costly, and I banked on Chicago having a lot of birds there. Chicago really likes his birds, and I do not want to pay life points, or at least a huge amount of life points in that matchup. But 7 Tools answers so much. Return, Icarus, Bottomlesses to save your summons, or you can run in right into sweepers. This card was amazing today. And then, of course, a Deck Devastation Virus. The way I look at this card is it's a bomb that you play for. Like Burial or Return, trying to max out on it may be like seeing a bunch of hamsters and Raikous, but no Caiuses. Not having cards that mesh well and convert really makes this suck when you see it in multiples, or you can't even get it live in the first place. And then Return does shoot, of course. We'll do side deck first, just because that's really what changes. I've been noticing everybody playing Elephant, and I get it, and it did, because I play this, it did affect the deck building of the extra deck. So I get it. You have to cut the Armory Arm. I think it's worth it. If Armory Arm comes up, it's just because you want to convert a flipped Raikou, which, you know, you could argue, do I even need to flip the Raikou in this case? I think the second silver one is worth it, but also never come up either. So, yep, they play this to ladder over other Blackwings, or other Vayu Synchros, I should say, just to get, like, one step higher than they can, or you play it for the Monarchs. 2 Sidras, 1 Kaiku, 1 Crow, and 1 Dyna. So I was a little bit back and forth on what cards do I bring to start hating on other strategies. I did want to see some variant where I could convert to stun. Unfortunately, these 2 cards were definitely side decked as an answer to, like Frog or Combo or stuff like that. And this is even good into like Light and Twilight Sworn. But I didn't want to max out them just to make space for a bunch of different back row options that I could keep live. I really don't think you need the additional Crow or the additional Pachycephalo, typically because it can be kind of hard to side out with Vayu, in my opinion. And there's not too many matchups where I'm like, I definitely need double Crow in, unless it's specifically Frog OTK, in which, number one, there's a ton of cards that I have for them. And number two, it's like, I get it, it is a powerful deck, but like nobody really plays it. So if you run into it, it's just unfortunate. And then the Kaiku, because you run into a lot of birds. I did look at some side decks and I try to be like, what are the common denominators here? What am I seeing? And this was just kind of like a comfort pick. I feel also as having a diversified side deck just makes it easier because technically I have a lot of answers, just the consistency kind of hurts, but it is what it is. 2 spells, Minecon, Vortex. And then I settled on 2 Dust Tornado. I did like the third because, again, I know Chicago likes its wings. But I figured that plus the MST, and I'm already playing the Hamster Ryko package. So I should have a clean answer for the most part to Bird back row. DDV, that's where the second one went. Still going to play it. 2 Oppression, and then, of course, 2 Pulling the Rug. I really hate frogs, and it always feels like I see the rug when they already established their Monarch, and I feel like I see the Oppressions when they're only hitting me with normal summons. So that's a nice little conundrum. And then on to the extra deck. 2 Arnwing, 2 Armor Master, and then 2 Silverwind. That's your Blackwing package. You play the second Silverwind because if you bring an Elfin, you may need a ladder into the second one. Dark End, Thought Ruler, Colossal, Stardust, Black Rose, bigger guys, bigger dragons, whatever. I know the extra deck isn't really that clean. Like I said, I'm not super invested in the format like that. But, if I could max rarity the deck, I would, but also it's just never going to happen. I've seen what conditions and countries these guys are looking for cards from, and no, I'm good. I'm perfectly fine with having something that I think costs like $50 to build. 1 Brionac, 1 Goyo, 1 Ally. Like I said, no Armory Arm because you need the space, and then 1 Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon. So that's the deck list. The lessons that I learned today is that I think had I played Nitro or some form of Woo Wings or whatever, where I am cutting out the chaos elements and I'm bringing more targeted hate and trying to send my best cards rather than mill them, that would be a much easier game to play because you're not fighting against, are my Ryko mills going to be good today? Am I bricking on normal summons? I would really like to convert the weenies in hand. I would just like to put pressure with the Knights, obnoxiously just slam into my opponents with them, and then say, all right, in the late game, now I have all my synchros ready, my return and my barrel or whatever alive. And there are just a lot of ways you can customize these decks because, what degree of Icarus, are they running draw traps, whatever. Before I end this, I do want to talk about a couple other side deck options that I had, which was, again, the Judgment. I really didn't want to play this, although it is a very, very good answer for non-bird-oriented decks, going first, of course. But I just didn't like the life point cost. So I don't think Judgment is totally necessary. I think it's a great card, but if you're not going to play it, you better have a good argument. Then you've got Starlight Road. I like Starlight because in a tournament setting, you can just set this in all your back row and not think and not worry about heavy. Or this is great to answer like Icarus attacks or whatnot, or Gladiator Beasts. It's a nice safety option, but it's an insurance policy, along with my body as a shield. Lets you play ignorantly, but they're do-nothing cards in a vacuum. So that's my thought process, was to just play live cards as often as possible. And of course, the Lila. Lila is great because it diversifies the charge package and makes it slightly higher ceiling. This is a huge body. It can mill a Plague or Gardna, which keeps it live, keeps it able to mill, and keeps it able to threaten back row. But unfortunately, I just hate that it's a normal summon that gets answered by cards that you just want to get rid of cleanly. So I'm thinking of Bottomless, and I would never want to bring this into a bird matchup. I would rather just have more back row hate. And then as a main deck option, it can be very hit or miss because, of course, again, it's not really something I want to see in a bird matchup. Maybe Vayu, but then that was your normal summon. It's not, what can I say? You can't threaten monsters. It's a little more telegraphed. It's very apparent on what's going down, rather than there's mind games to play with Ryko, or you can plus off of it with a hamster again. Lila just doesn't convert the same way. Now, it does have pressure, but it's all context. And again, it's not incorrect to play it, but this isn't really what I wanted to go for. And I didn't want to add another element of random mills, because if this just sticks on the field, if they're not answering it, imagine what would it do if like turn 3, turn 4, and it's just getting rid of my whole deck. And I've had that happen before. I'm just like, I would have loved to play the game, but I wanted Lila so badly, and now I don't have anything. I don't have bombs left. They're all gone. I banished all my Vayus. I can't get them back. So those were the 4 cards that I was considering. Again, insurance policies, a very, very powerful card. But again, when I was thinking about just Chicago Birds, didn't want to pay that much life. And then Lila, again, feel free to agree, disagree, or whatever. That's the cool thing, is there's technically nothing incorrect. But again, to restate it, I would 100% just play something faster, like Nitro. Anyway, shout out to TGS. Shout out to the Chicago Yu-Gi-Oh area. Chicago does have the best Yu-Gi-Oh players. Shout out to Team Pandemonium. They don't play, but they are my team, and they have supported me for the most part. And shout out to Jesus for saving my soul and just saying, you know what, it's fine. You just get out the house. Thank goodness for salvation. Am I right? Anyway, I hope to upload more frequently than I am doing now. And I thank you guys for your time. Have a wonderful rest of your day.